Hey there, it's Joshua Roy here, Access World Seminars, and I'm just up this morning. What is the date today? It is the 20th, Friday the 20th of February 2026. And the reason I'm wanting to say something or connect with you today is to talk about happiness. Well, happiness is a nice topic, so let's start there. And inevitably, and I've done coaching with a lot of people, when we get down to it, people want to be happy. And I have this conversation over and over again with people. In fact, we go through different processes like goal setting. And we talk about, what does a person really want? What do you want? And we look at the things that they want, and they talk about having a better relationship or having more money or having a better work-life balance and having a better career and making sure their health is looked after. And they want all these things. And when we get into the why of those things, it inevitably comes back to happiness. Happiness is the object and design of our existence and will be the end thereof if we follow the course that leads to us. And what is that course? Well, that course is honesty and finding values and finding meaning and fulfillment in life and following principles that will lead us to happiness and applying those principles in our lives. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the formula for happiness, because there is a formula, and the formula for unhappiness, because once again, there is a formula, and also the formula for suffering, because there is a formula there as well. So let's start with happiness. What is the formula for happiness? It's really quite simple. Happiness is when your life conditions match your blueprint. That equals happiness. Very simple formula. But let's see if it's true. And you can do this in your own life. Just think of an area of life that you're happy about. It could be career, it could be relationships, it could be something else. And I was just listening to a woman who was talking about how happy she was in her family life with her child. She has a son that's a few years old, and she was showing a card on a Zoom event that showed that she was loved by her child. He had written to the best mum ever on this card that he created for his mum. And she was just beaming from this. She was happy because her child loves her. And just watching him grow and being with him is a privilege. And she also said that just being with him and noticing the effect that she's having on him and on his life is just filling her with joy. It's filling her with happiness. And so she's happy in that part of her life. So her life conditions match her blueprint. So her child at the moment, who's very young, is doing the things that she's inviting him to do and asking him to do, and he's just a bundle of joy, and this is creating happiness for her. She's getting good results. She's having an impact. She's able to help him to grow and learn and discover all that life has to offer. And this for her is just filling her with an immense amount of happiness. So her life conditions match her blueprint, and that makes her happy. Her son and her relationship with him is matching exactly the way that she thinks it should be. Now, she was also unhappy, and the unhappiness was because 2 days previous, her partner had walked out. He had left her, and she was unhappy in her intimate relationship. And she was unhappy with her intimate relationship because she wanted this relationship to last. She didn't give up on it. She was going to push through. She was going to make it work. And yet he decided he'd had enough, and he called it quits and left. He walked out. He cut it off. He dumped her. As she put it, she was dumped. And in this area of life, she was unhappy because she wanted the relationship to last forever. And it's not lasting forever. He had another plan. And because of that, it's affected her happiness. And so in this area of her life, she is unhappy. So unhappiness, the formula is when life conditions do not match the blueprint. See, her life conditions were that she was supposed to be in a happy, secure, loving relationship. And because of this ending of the relationship, because that hasn't happened, now she's unhappy. And that's the formula. Now, she also mentioned she was unhappy in her career. This particular woman was in the Navy, and at first she loved the Navy, the adventure, the travel, whereas now she has a child. And this small child is taking her time and attention, and due to the politics at work and other situations, she's not enjoying the Navy like she once did. She loved it for the first 3 or 4 years. It was bringing her happiness, whereas now her career is bringing her sadness, because it takes her away from something she loves more than the Navy, and that is her child, because she loves being a mother. And so what you've got is the formula here for happiness. Life conditions do not match the blueprint. Therefore, she's unhappy. She now values something more than she values the Navy, and that is her child. And so because of this change in her life, because everything in life changes, now she's in a situation where she was once happy in her career, she loved it, and now she's unhappy and is looking for an escape and looking for a change there. So it's interesting how these formulas work. Now we go to the third step, which is the suffering. Now, if your life conditions do not match your blueprint, and we've talked about a couple of areas for this particular woman that's happened, and you feel like there's nothing you can do to change it, well, now you start to suffer. And it just so happens that I had a work colleague, and he came and he told me that, there's nothing he could do about his current situation. Like, he was going to work and he had to work in this particular place, in this particular spot. He wasn't enjoying it, didn't like it at all, but he had to do it. He didn't have a choice. And so because he had to do it and didn't have a choice, he was not only unhappy, he was suffering. Now, he could have easily have chosen to be there. He could easily be looking at it differently, or he could make a different choice, because there's two ways that we can change things. And a lot of people forget that they have these options. They don't want to think about these options. And instead of taking those options, he was playing a blame game. He was angry at the bosses, angry at his employer, angry with the work that he had to do and the position that he was placed in. He didn't like any of that. And so if your life conditions don't match your blueprint and there's nothing you can do to change it, or you feel like there's nothing you can do to change it, that's suffering. Okay, but you can always change things. We know this. So the first thing we do is we blame, or we ignore. And ignore and blame, the first thing we ignore and blame is events. The second thing we can blame or ignore are other people. And the third thing that we can blame or ignore is ourself. And if we blame ourselves, notice that every time you blame yourself for something, if you beat yourself up, your energy is reduced. You feel low, you feel bad. You don't feel good about that. And in fact, your energy goes down. And so your ability, your capacity to overcome challenge and change things actually reduces. And that's why people feel stuck. And that's why people suffer more. Is because they feel like there's nothing they can do about it. So ignoring it, we can live in denial, and we can do that for as long as we want to. And denial can appease somebody for a short time, but it's a bad long-term strategy. In fact, it's a bad strategy overall. Being ignorant of it, denying it, deluding ourselves, all of that will lead to negativity. All of that will lead to a life of suffering. And the other thing I want to do is blame. Like I said, you can blame events. You can, say, well, the reason I'm unhappy is because of this event or that event, or because this person rejected me and walked out on me, or because of the economic downfall that happened, in 2008. That's why I'm still unhappy, or because I got walked out on, because my child rejected me, and the list goes on. And we can always find something that we're unhappy about. Now, there's only two ways to change what we're unhappy about. And we can change anything. Because the truth and the fundamental foundation of an empowered life says that you have the power to transform. You have the power to change anything in your life at any time. And so when it comes to transformative work, when it comes to empowerment and being empowered, what we do is we look at how we want to change it. And here's the two things that you can change. You can change your perception or you can change your procedure. That's it. They're the only two things that you can do. Now, changing a perception says that I need to work on my mind and my mindset. I need to make that thing that I'm looking at in a negative light not seem so bad. Maybe I need to ask different questions about it. Maybe I need to look at the situation differently. Maybe I need to take a look through fresh eyes. Maybe I need to go and look at that situation through the eyes of gratitude rather than just through the eyes of pain or the eyes of suffering. So I need to change my perception, the way that I look at it. And I can ask new questions about it. I can also look forward to something great as an outcome. You see, quite often when something negative or adverse happens, we think negatively about it. And because of this, because of our thoughts, it becomes more negative than it actually potentially is. We can actually hem it up. We can actually make it worse. We can create a mountain out of a molehill. And when that happens, we start to suffer more. We start to be more unhappy. This is a problem. So the first thing we do is we change our perception. We change our expectations for appreciation. We look at using gratitude as the great healer. So instead of being cut up about something, instead of being knocked about because of it, we change it. We start thinking differently about it. We start looking at the situation differently. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. You bring a different or a fresh set of eyes to a situation. You try and look at it from a new perspective, from a new angle. And this is something that I do in a process called the gift. You see, what we do is we go back and we look at the negativity of a person's life, and then we start looking at it from different angles. We look at it from your adult self, that perspective looking back, and then we look at it from God's perspective looking down. And as we change the way that we look at it, well, there's a shift. There's a shift that happens in each and every person. They start to see it differently. And the other thing we look for is what characteristics, what values, what character traits have you developed as a result of going through that negative or bad or harder experience? And so we start looking at it differently. And instead of just looking at the negativity that came from it, we look at the resilience and the strength and the power and the fortitude that we build up as a result of going through that less than positive situation. And when a person does that, they are able to shift. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And when you shift the way you look at it, well, what you can do is get out of suffering. What you can do is get away from unhappiness. So that's the first thing, is that we change our perception. We change the way we think about it. We change the way we look at it. We change all those things, and that can actually loosen the grip that negativity and that negative situation may have on us and our soul. So that's the first thing. You change your perception. And the second thing is you change your procedure. You change what you do. You think to yourself, well, if that's not working, if what I'm doing right now isn't yielding fruit, there's no result, positive result that's coming from it, now I need to change something. I need to do something different. And so what you do is you get a coach, you get a mentor, and you start looking for different ways to deal with the issue or different ways to attack the problem. You increase your knowledge base about it, maybe a seminar or a coaching session or attending courses. And what you do is you start to pick up new ideas that you can apply to your life. And when you start applying these new ideas and you start taking new actions, then you start getting different results. And so the definition of insanity is trying to do things the same way repeatedly and hope for a different result. The trouble is, if you don't change sufficiently and if you don't use new actions, if you don't change the way you think about a situation and the way you act towards it, then your results tend to stay the same. And it becomes a vicious cycle. So you've got to get out of that cycle of just going through the motions over and over again. And so what you're looking for is you're looking for new voices, you're looking for coaching, you're looking for a mentor, you're looking for somebody to shake you loose from the grip that that negative situation, person, or event has on you so that you can create the change. So what we do is we change your procedure, what you do, how you look at life, and what you do about it, the actions you take. We've got to change that and formulate new habits of success. Now, I hope this is useful. We've looked at the formula today of happiness, unhappiness, and suffering. And we've also considered the first thing people do is denial, and the second one is blame. So people ignore and blame those situations. And the first thing they blame is the events, and they blame others, and they blame themselves. And we looked at then changing our perception or a procedure or both. And that's what you're going to do to change your life. And so I hope this is useful for you. Have a think about these ideas and these concepts and apply them into your life. Now, what I've discovered is the best way to create this change is through values work. And specifically looking at towards values, away from values, and also the rules around those values. And what I've found is that when I work with people, particularly one-on-one in coaching sessions, when we are able to discover what their values are, and we do a list or a hierarchy of their values from most important to least important. And all a value is something that's important to you. And so we get the most important things in your life and they become your leading values. And then we start looking at the rules associated with those. And what happens is when people set their rules up to be so difficult to meet, then the natural outcome of that is unhappiness. If you set your standards too high, as far as your rules go, in relation to your values, and you find yourself falling short time after time, you don't quite reach them, then people go into suffering very easily. So it's been said that you should have difficult goals, but easy values. And what that means is you create rules around your values that are easy to meet so that you meet those values every single day. That creates happiness. And if you have goals that are difficult, well, that can stretch you. Now we've got the principle of stretch happening. So goals should stretch, but values should be easy to reach and maintain because that creates happiness. And what we're doing there is a perceptual shift with people to make their rules easy so that that person can find more happiness more easily. So just remember that your commitment to yourself should be to discover who you really are, unlock your incredible self, and unleash that on the world. Have a wonderful day, and please subscribe, follow, jump onto Instagram that's linked to this, and join up there as well. Let's get more and more people growing and improving and changing and developing. And that's my goal, is to get 200 people to be part of Access World and to find those people who resonate with this material and the other useful tips that I give. And I hope this is useful for you. Please jump on, subscribe, follow, and live your best life.